Chapter 1. The House at the End of Nowhere. The gravel road to Martha Evers' farmhouse hadn't seen fresh tire tracks in 15 years, not since the last visitor arrived. The neighbors, if you could call them that, scattered like breadcrumbs across 3 miles of Oklahoma prairie, knew better than to ask about the cars. 6 of them now, parked in a perfect semicircle in her overgrown yard, their paint blistered by the sun, tires sunk into the earth like they'd grown roots. A '98 Ford Taurus, a cherry red Jeep Wrangler, a minivan with baby on board still peeling from its window. All faced the house, their headlights shattered, hoods open like gaping mouths. Old Man Higgins, the closest neighbor at half a mile, swore they were tombstones. "Ain't no one comes out of that house," he'd rasp, spitting tobacco into a mason jar. Martha's been alone since her boy disappeared in 2008. Them cars, they're the folks who tried to check on her. Gone. But she keeps them close. Real close. No one called Martha a witch, not out loud. But the prairie had its own vocabulary. The way crows circled her roof at dusk. The low hum that pulsed from her land after midnight. The dreams. Oh, the dreams. Every new neighbor learned quick. Move into a homestead within 3 miles of Martha's, and the first night, you dream of headlights cutting through your window. A voice, sweet as rot, would whisper, "Come for coffee, sugar? I get so lonely." Wake up screaming, and there'd be mud on your porch steps. Not your own. Chapter 2. The new neighbor, Jake Coleman, didn't believe in prairie witches. He bought the Henderson place, a ramschler 1.8 miles from Martha's, because it was cheap, and because city life had left him raw. Atlanta's noise had drilled into his skull. He craved the silence of endless grass. His first morning, he found the crow. It lay on his welcome mat, wings splayed, beak pried open in a silent scream. A rusty key hung from its neck by twine. The note tucked under its talons read, "Welcome to the neighborhood. Return this when you're ready." Jake tossed it in the trash. That night the dream came. Headlights. A woman's silhouette in his doorway, backlit by a moon too large, too yellow. "You'll do," she murmured. Her hands were blackened, fingers too long, nails curved like scythes. She placed something on his nightstand, a mason jar filled with murky liquid. Inside, things writhed. Jake woke drenched in sweat. On his nightstand, a mason jar. The water was rancid, flecked with dead flies. And floating in the center, a human molar. Chapter 3. The Invitation. The cars watched him. Jake tried to ignore them, but every trip to town, Martha's rusted fleet glared from their crooked formation. The Jeep's shattered windshield looked like a scream. On his 3rd week, the knocking started. 3 raps, 3:33 a.m. on his back door. Not the sharp tat-tat-tat of knuckles, but something softer, meatier. "Who's there?" Jake shouted, gripping his baseball bat. Silence. Then, a wet, gurgling laugh, the sound of lungs drowning. He didn't sleep after that. Old Man Higgins confirmed it the next day. "She's chosen you," he said, pale as milk. "The key. You kept it, didn't you?" "Threw it out," Jake lied. "Liar, it's in your pocket right now." Jake froze. He reached into his jacket, the key, cold and gritty, pressed into his palm. "Only way out's through," Higgins muttered. "She'll invite you over. Don't drink the tea." Chapter 4. The Visit. The invitation arrived at sunset. A child's finger painting slid under Jake's door. A stick figure man walking toward a house. 6 cars bleeding red crayon tears. On the back, in elegant script, "Come at midnight. Let's discuss the noise complaints. Jake went. Not because he was brave, but because the key burned through his pocket. Because his faucets now ran brackish water thick with teeth. Martha's porch light flickered. Up close, the cars reeked of decay. The minivan's seats were crusted with something dark. The Jeep's rearview mirror held a Polaroid. A family of 3, their faces scratched out. Martha answered before he knocked. She was beautiful, horribly so. Hair like oil, eyes a green too vivid, lips parted to reveal teeth filed to points. "Jacob," she crooned, "you brought my key." Her living room was a shrine, walls papered with photos, missing persons flyers, news clippings, obituaries, all the car's owners. "Sit," she smiled, pouring tea from a tarnished samovar. "You're here about the noises, yes?" The tea stank of pennies. Jake pretended to sip. "What's in the cars, Martha?" She laughed, a sound like ice down the spine. "Guests. They overstayed, so I repurposed them." A thump echoed from the basement. Then another, a chorus of muffled thuds, rhythmic, desperate. "They get loud when I have company," Martha sighed. Hungry. Chapter 5. The Feast. Jake ran. Too late. The key in his pocket clicked, and the front door sealed shut. The walls pulsed, breathing as Martha's form unraveled. Skin sloughing to reveal something jagged and glistening, limbs elongating, mouth splitting ear to ear. "You'll do," she hissed. The basement door burst open. They crawled out. The guests, not people, not anymore. Their bodies were fused with car parts. A man with a steering column for a spine. A woman whose jaws screeched on rusted hinges. A teenager with headlight eyes burning fever yellow. They lurched toward Jake, moaning through radiators for lungs. Martha's true voice shook the house. "You'll join the collection." Jake smashed the mason jar against the wall. The water inside, alive, squirming, erupted into a swarm of fat black beetles. They clotted Martha's maw, choking her shrieks as Jake grabbed a fire poker and plunged it into her chest. The house screamed, the guests wailed, and the key in Jake's pocket melted, searing his thigh. He escaped as the roof caved. Epilogue. The 7th car, the neighbors found Jake's pickup in Martha's yard the next morning, facing the house. Hood open. Inside, the seats were stained with something dark. The radio played static except at 3:33 a.m. when it had crackled to life. "Come for coffee, sugar? I get so lonely." And in the rear-view mirror, if you looked quick, a figure with headlight eyes mouthing, "You'll do."